Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer Chen and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about active learning principles and why it is relevant to your USMLE preparation. In the beginning, let me give you a brief introduction about myself. I used to be a clinical faculty at UTESCA in PNWU Health Science. I'm very passionate about medical education and I had a lot of experience training medical students, residents, and fellows. Since we're talking about USMLE preparation, I think it will be relevant for me to give you my score. My USMLE Step 1 was 99 percentile and my USMLE Step 2 was 91 percentile. Since I prepared USMLE Step 1 and Step 2 at the same time, I took both tests just 2 weeks apart. Now let's go back to today's topic, active learning principles and why it is relevant to your USMLE preparation. The other day, my daughter Anna was asking me, "Mom, why are you not telling stories in your videos anymore?" As a more experienced YouTuber, she advised me that people like to hear about stories. So I decided to take her advice, and today we're going to start our topic with a story. So the other day I was watching a video on YouTube, and this YouTuber is a fashion beauty YouTuber. And she's actually giving out advices on how to prepare for a master exam. So I think it will be very interesting to see if a fashion beauty YouTuber would have a different perspective on how to prepare for tests. So these are the advices she gave, and let's go through them together and see what we can learn from them. Number 1, wear comfortable clothing. 2, do not spend time on makeup. 3, set your schedule. 4, follow study routines every day. 5, read and reread all the textbooks. 6, try to memorize everything. 7, design your own notebook for architecture design. 8, check daily to make sure you are on schedule. 9, self-discipline. Now I will give you a few moments to think about it. Which of the advices do you think are effective? Which are not? Our purpose here is not trying to criticize anybody or any advices. Our goal is just trying to see if the advices will fit active learning principles. So now let's go through all her advices. The first 2, wear comfortable clothing and do not spend time on makeup. And I think as a fashion beauty YouTuber, she put the 2 advices on the top of her list, which is very, very impressive to me, because that shows she is very dedicated. She doesn't want to get distracted. She just wants to spend her time on the preparation. But let's think about it from an active learning principle point of view. Does it really matter? The answer is probably not. If you spend hours a day trying to look good, then it probably will beat the purpose because you just won't have enough time to study. But wearing fancy clothes and spend some time on makeup doesn't actually decrease your effectiveness of study. Now how about all these ones? Set a schedule. You know what you're going to do every day, how much you're going to do, how long you're going to study. Follow a study routine, like you wake up every morning at 8, you study from 9 to 5, you take breaks throughout the day. Does that help? The next 2 things I think most candidates would actually follow, and you have already probably do it during your routine practice. You just read and reread textbooks over and over and try to memorize everything. That sounds very, very impressive, very, very dedicated. But is it useful? Is it effective? Now the next one is self-discipline. So push yourself really hard. Have a strong willpower, even if you hate it, even if you just cannot go through with it, just do it anyway. That sounds very inspiring, right? But does it really work? So all those advice we just talked about, they're very nice advice. They might be helpful to a certain extent, but unfortunately they don't fit the active learning principles. And I don't know if you have noticed or figured it out yourself. The only advice that fits the active learning principle is to design your own notebook. Okay, at this moment, I know what you're thinking. You probably think I totally confused you. Just bear with me for a few more moments and we're going to explore the active learning principles together and how it can benefit your USMLE preparation. So two main things you need to understand about active learning. One is to think it through. Two is to make and use associations. Now, is that simple enough? What do we mean by think it through? I understand what you're thinking. You think, well, I'm using my brain all the time. I'm trying to memorize it, so I'm thinking it through. But are you really? So for active learning to happen, you have to extend your thinking beyond the face value of information. That's why read and reread the textbooks doesn't work, because you were just still reading the face value. Even if you were trying to memorize everything, you were just memorizing the face value. You were not really thinking or connecting to other parts of the information. And the other point is it will require recall of relevant information. That means when certain situations or questions come, you will be able to recall or retrieve whatever you have memorized and solve the problem. And in order to think it through, you have to learn from your errors as well. The other way to achieve this goal is to mix different types of questions. So for example, when you do practice questions, you don't want to do all MI questions, like all 50 of them. You might want to do other cardiac problems and that might have similar presentations, confusing differential diagnosis, things like that, and that will actually help you more. The last method that will help you to achieve your goal is to generate feelings to enhance recall. Because research shows when you are memorizing things, you have a certain emotion connect to it. Then when you're doing the questions or when you're doing the test, if you have the same emotions, then it will be actually easier for you to recall the information. So if you have a more pleasant feeling when you are doing the practice questions or when you're doing the studies, and at the test, when you feel happy again, then it's easier for you to remember all the answers. The second goal for active learning principles is to make and use associations. The first way to do it is to collect information into organized units. So instead of storing your information randomly, store them into units. That's why there were so many forms and lists. They all help you to organize your information. The second way is to connect new information to previously stored information. So let's take heart attack for example. You have learned about the basics, how the EKG changes, how the presentations, how to manage them in general. Then later on you learned about specific locations, like inferior wall MI, anterior wall MI, how they're different, how their presentations are different, EKGs, complications. That instead of memorizing them as two separate entities, you actually need to connect them together, connect the new information to the old ones, so that way they can all be organized into one unit. And also during the whole process of connecting them, you're using the basic information as a structural spine, and you're basically attaching all the new information to the spine. And the other effective way to make association is to associate material with a variety of settings. So how does it look in the USMLE preparation? That means you try to see how the same disease, how the same diagnosis present in different contexts, in different settings. That way it will develop more association for you. You actually know the disease better. The next one is to incorporate distinctive retrieval cues to avoid confusion. I think you all heard about buzzword. It's when you see certain words, certain specific description, then you know that's the diagnosis. It works really, really well for step 1. It's not as accurate for step 2. But the buzzword are what we call distinctive retrieval cues. So that way, if you only have 1 minute to make a decision, it will avoid a lot of confusion. As you can see, active learning involves one or multiple of the principles. When you're doing the tests, when you're trying to set up study blocks, you can use all these active learning principles. But if you just read and reread or trying to memorize everything, it's actually still passive study, passive reading, and it doesn't involve any of the learning principles. Now let's go back to the design your own notebook advice. How does that fit into the active learning principles? Let's think about it. If you need to design your own notebook, what do you have to do? First, you have to think beyond the face value of things, because you have to summarize things. You have to think about what's most important and what do you really want to put in your notebook. Then you have to make associations. You have to organize your thoughts into units and then connect them together. You probably are attaching and organizing the new information to the old ones you already know. And you can probably think more active learning principles that you're applying when you are doing your own notebook. And I hope from this example you will be able to tell the difference between passive and active learning. And when you are doing your own USMLE preparation, you will apply more of the active learning principles, so it will be way more effective. Okay, that's all for today's video. I really hope today's content will be a starting point for you to think about how you prepare for your USMLE exam. And if you find the content to be useful, please do subscribe, share, like, and comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. And you have a great day. Bye!